Hi everyone, my name is Melissa Barnard. I'm from the class of E 2016 and I will be talking to you about applying into obstetrics and gynecology. Here's our overview. We'll be talking about the scope of OB/GYN practice, why I chose this field, career specifics, elective clerkships, timeline specifics, letters of rec, making yourself competitive, resources you can use, and fellowship opportunities. The scope of practice for OB/GYN is very broad, and it includes all of women's health before, during, and after childbearing years. And you can focus on any or all of these stages of life. And this includes preventative care and primary care, such as pap smears, breast exams, mammograms, STI detection and treatment, family planning, including contraception, termination, and fertility augmentation. There's a lot of surgery opportunities, such as congenital anomalies, trauma, gender affirmation surgery, minimally invasive GYN surgery, female pelvic and reconstructive surgery, as well as oncology, including vulvar, vaginal, cervical, uterine, and ovarian cancers. So why did I choose OB/GYN? I actually did not intend to when I entered medical school. I knew that I loved surgery, and I thought that I really did not like clinic. But during my OB/GYN rotation, I really enjoyed how procedural based it was. Whether it was a pelvic exam or an IUD or an Nexplanon placement or removal or an endometrial biopsy, I really just enjoyed all of that. I also really enjoyed talking to women about their sexual health and their periods and their incontinence and how we can fix it, and adolescence and about their hormones and puberty. I really just liked all of those conversations. I also liked the idea of continuity of care without the reality of having to manage someone's hypertension forever. You get to manage someone's problems for discrete periods of times and for discrete issues. I also really liked the flexibility in the scope of practice and how that can shift depending on your needs and wants in your life at that time. So if you wanted to do more OB or more surgery or more clinic, you have that option. I'm also really interested in serving underserved and marginalized populations, specifically LGBTQ medicine and prison medicine, and there's a huge need for competent OB/GYNs in both of these areas. So OB/GYN career specifics, residency programs are all 4 years, though there is some talk to increasing this to 5 years. The average salary varies widely based on if you subspecialize or if you're more surgical or OB or clinic based. And the average hours that you work also have a very wide range. A full scope OB/GYN can expect to work anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week, which really depends on how much call you take. However, OB/GYNs across the country are enjoying a much better lifestyle with the implementation of hospitalists. In terms of elective clerkships, the timing of your sub-I will depend on how well you did on your MS3 OB/GYN rotation. If you honored that rotation, you can choose if you want to take your sub-I either before or after you submit your residency application. If you did not honor that rotation, then it is advisable for you to take an OB/GYN sub-I prior to submitting your application so that you have the opportunity to honor an OB/GYN rotation and have that on your transcript for when you apply. Right now, away rotations are not required. They're much more common on the East Coast schools, but they are starting to happen on West Coast schools. And they can increase the chances of you getting an interview at a particular program that you're interested in, especially if it's a REACH program, but they are not necessary. The timeline for OB/GYN is pretty standard. There's no separate application process. The interview season is also pretty standard and runs from late October to late December, but there are some programs that offer interviews in early October to mid-January. In terms of letters of rec, not all programs will require a department chair letter, but enough will that you should just request one. And information about this will come from Jessica Situ from the OB/GYN department either in late spring or early summer. And do not wait to request this letter. A lot goes into it, and you actually have to meet with Dr. Goff either in person or via Zoom to discuss your application and how she should write this letter for you. Some of my colleagues waited a little too long to request this letter and they weren't able to get it, which means that they were limited in the types of programs that they were able to apply to. Some programs also state that they want an academic OB/GYN letter. This means someone working at UW. Unfortunately, if you did your OB/GYN rotation outside of UW, either in a rural area or wherever it was, You might want to do a sub-I at UW prior to applying so that you have the chance to get an academic OB-GYN letter. Unfortunately, this information is not widely available, and you have to go to each specific program that you are applying to, and you have to go to their website to figure out if they want a chair letter or if they want an academic OB-GYN letter. Otherwise, include your OB-GYN clerkship letter and any other letter from a specialty that you felt like you had a good rapport with the doc. In terms of when to ask for a letter, I thought it was beneficial to bring it up at the end of my clerkships, and that allowed me to kind of gauge the response from my doc and how excited they were in writing me a letter. I then sent a follow-up email in June that had a little bit of information about me to remind them who I was, my stats with all my scores, and the program that I was applying into, so OB-GYN. So if you're applying into multiple specialties, you might want to include that so that they can write you multiple letters if that's what you're asking for. In terms of number of letters, you need to have 4 minimum, but do not send all programs 4 letters. You do really need to look at each specific program website and see how many letters they want and what type of letters they want. Some programs will specify that they want 3 max, some containing the chair letter or an academic letter, and some just say, send us 4 letters. In terms of increasing competitiveness, unfortunately, OB-GYN has become more and more competitive each year, so having a high step score does help. However, if your step score is average or maybe even below average, that does not mean that you cannot apply. You might have to dual apply, but you should definitely talk to Dr. Menderata and come up with a plan. You can also check program-specific cutoffs. These are sometimes listed on program websites, or you can check the website FRIDA. You should also try to honor as many clinical rotations as you can. This means showing up and acting like you're very interested and studying your butt off for all of your shelf exams. It's also beneficial to have a focus in med school, whether that's research or working with a particular population such as underserved or doing a pathway or focusing on volunteering. Just have some sort of longitudinal focus that you can talk about in your interviews and in your application. Also, just try to be interesting. Find what sets you apart and capitalize on that. Put it in your application. Make them want to meet you. So whether or not that's your background or your hobbies or what you've done in med school, doesn't matter. Just find it, use it. So there are a lot of different resources that you can use. However, you must talk to Dr. Menderata. She is the OB-GYN advisor, and not only is she just a gem of a human, but she's also just a wealth of information. She will help you gauge your competitiveness, whether or not you need to dual apply, or whether or not OB-GYN even sounds like a good fit for you. She will connect you with other resources, whether that's another physician or a website or a resident at a program that you're particularly interested in. So contact her early as soon as you have the slightest idea that you might be interested in OB-GYN, and she'll help you come up with a plan. FRIDA is also a really great resource. It has consolidated information about different programs in terms of letter numbers, step score cutoffs, salary, etc. However, make sure you cross-reference things, especially like letter numbers, with the program's actual website because sometimes they're off. Doximity is also a resource that can be useful. You can stratify programs based on their rank with research or prestige. However, I do caution you in using this resource because their information is just from a pool of people. It's not hard data, so do not use this resource to build your rank list. The Reddit OB-GYN spreadsheet is also a great resource, but I also caution you with this. It's basically a spreadsheet that includes information from applicants all over the world who are applying to U.S. OB-GYN residency programs. And these people include their stats, what programs they're applying to, when they heard back from programs, post-interview communication, etc. However, it's also a really good just message board if you have questions about a program. People talk about their experience during their sub-I or during their interview, and it can be a good wealth of information. Just also take that info with a grain of salt. Regarding fellowship, there are a lot to choose from, and many people do not realize this. There are 4 main board certifiable fellowships, and they include GYN-onc, maternal fetal medicine, MFM, minimally invasive gynecologic surgery, MIGS, and reproductive endocrinology and infertility, REI. But there are several fellowships that are on their way towards becoming board certifiable, and that includes female pelvic medicine and reconstructive surgery, also known as Urogyn. There's family planning, which a lot of people do for the research aspect, as many programs have quite a bit of family planning in the residency program itself. There's pediatric adolescent gynecology, also known as PAG, and there's global women's health. I do want to mention though that you can do bits and pieces of each of these fields without doing the fellowship. So let's say you want to focus on family planning, you can do that without doing the fellowship. Or you want to do a lot of laparoscopic and robotic surgery, you don't have to do the MIGS fellowship in order to have that a part of your practice. However, if you want it to be your main scope, you may want to do a fellowship in the area. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found some of the information to be helpful, and feel free to contact me if you have any additional questions. I know this is a really stressful process, whether you are trying to figure out what specialty you are applying into or how to put your application together, but just take it one step at a time, reach out to different resources, and know that you're not alone. You can do this.